A second type is the maximizer, and the maximizer has unrealistic expectations of their partner. And so you're a maximizer if you say things like, I just want to keep searching, or I found someone great, but I want to find someone even better. And this is the person who's never satisfied. They always wonder what else is out there, the sort of the grass is greener person. And the third type is the hesitator. And the hesitator has unrealistic expectations of themselves. And so the hesitator says things like, I'll be ready to date when I lose 5 pounds, when I get a better job, when I finally clean up my apartment. And so there's a sense within them that they're not dateable and that they need to become a different person before they're going to put themselves out there because no one would fall for them with who they are right now.
So you don't believe in the one?
I don't believe in the one. No, I feel like there's so many great people who you could make a life with. And that it's really interesting because I think especially for the maximizer type, there's almost this premise of it's 95% who you choose and 5% the effort you put in. And I don't have exact numbers on this, but my framework would be more like it's 25% who you choose and 75% the effort you put in. And instead, in our society, we become so obsessed with like finding the perfect person instead of building the perfect relationship.
I actually love that approach. And I find that so fascinating because we place so much emphasis, not even on choosing the right person, but finding the right person, believing that they exist, rather than thinking, okay, I've got to choose someone who hopefully I'll have a better chance with because they're choosing me too, and we're going to work on it together. And that work part being your emphasis feels like the right place to place the priority. With your three, I love the romanticizer, the hesitator, and the maximizer. Ultimately, are we trying to just improve? I saw your email that came through with my assessment, which I thought was great. And it gave me really actionable tips to say, here's how to stop being X. Here's how to improve this area of your life. What are we trying to get to? Because we're ultimately one of these three. What are we trying to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the point of the 3 dating tendencies is to understand that you probably have dating blind spots. So these are patterns of behavior or ways of thinking that are holding you back from finding love, but that you can't identify on your own. And in my coaching, and I'm sure you felt this too, people often come in and they're like, my biggest issue is what I look like, or my biggest issue is that I work too much. And almost 100% of the time, that's not what their biggest issue is. Because if they knew what their biggest issue was, they could fix it. But a lot of times it's something else that they don't realize. And so the point of knowing your dating tendency is to say something like, okay, I'm a maximizer. I'm always looking for the next best thing. I'm actually going to switch and become what I call a satisficer, which I can get into, and really understand that if I want to move to the next level, if I want to go from the guy who dates someone for 3 months and then always tries to trade up, but I really want to get married and have kids, I have to overcome this tendency in order to move to the next stage, or else I'll keep repeating this for years to come.
Yeah, that's fascinating that we're not aware of the thing that's blocking us. And usually it's some distraction that we've imagined up and said, oh, it's because I'm never available. And what you're saying is this actually helps us get to the root of where it comes from and why it exists in the first place.
Yeah. And so my background is in behavioral science, which is the study of how people make decisions. And this is just what fascinates me about the world is so often we're not making decisions in a conscious way. We are really following these invisible scripts. And so the point of my work and of the 3 dating tendencies is to say, let's make the invisible visible. And then we can identify the problem, make a plan, and then you can show up differently and get different results.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share my results in a second. I want to ask you a couple more things about that before we get there. Because your work's in data, I wanted to ask you, what data point have you come across? I feel like there's so much great research now about love and dating and matching. It's better than it's ever been before. We have more access. I want to share a few stats with you in a second. But what would you say has been the thing that has shocked you the most? The data point that you saw and you went, I cannot believe that's true.
One data point that shocked me recently and actually made me happy is I saw through some research that we did at Hinge that, well, I'll start by saying, I think people think that Gen Z is really nihilistic. They love dark humor. They're really pragmatic. And so I would have guessed that Gen Z was not romantic at all, that they would just be like, okay, like nothing else in the world is working out. I was born into this really tough moment in history, and I would think that they wouldn't be romantic. But what we saw in our data at Hinge is that Gen Z is actually 30% more likely than millennials to believe in the idea of a soulmate. And they're 39% more likely than millennials to identify as someone who's romantic or idealistic about romance. And so I think that we should not cut this generation short and think, oh, they're not interested in romance. They really are. They really are yearning for romance, even to the point of, believing in a soulmate, which I said I don't.
Yeah.
But there's so much holding them back. And I know we'll get into it in this conversation, but really this fear of rejection and fear of embarrassment, fear of cringe. And so this data point of Gen Z actually being quite romantic has really stuck out to me.
Yeah. It's interesting that, like you said, even though you don't believe in a soulmate, the fact that this whole generation does, or a lot of the generation does, it at least points to a belief in love and a value in love. And we just need to figure out what that is. I wanted to ask you about a couple of statistics that I pulled out.
Great, let's do it.
Blew my mind that I think these speak to what we're struggling with in the dating landscape right now, and I wanted to share some. So we'll go through one at a time,
Sure.
And I'd love to get your reaction to it. This stat says 53% of singles reported dating burnout. And I think dating burnout is what we're seeing all across the board. When you see that, talk to me about the behavioral science. Talk to me about the reasoning why we're experiencing dating burnout. What is it? Because we're all thinking it might be the apps. It might be that there's no good people out there left anymore. All the great people are taken. What is actually happening? What are you seeing?
When I hear that, I feel so sad. Like they can't remember the last time they went out on a date. I feel like we're just sort of missing the plot here. It's like part of being young is dating and meeting new people and figuring out who you are. And it's almost like dating has become a job, and then people feel like they need to take a break from it. And so at Hinge, one of the biggest data points that we've seen around burnout is that something that causes it is lack of responsiveness. So I send you a message, we're going back and forth, and then you just stop responding. And then it makes me feel like, what did I do wrong? Why are you rejecting me? Why doesn't anyone want to be with me? And I sort of spiral. And after a while, you just need to take a break from that feeling. And so part of it is just, I think in dating culture right now, we're really taking each other for granted. And there's a sense of like, if I disappoint you, well, there's someone else waiting for me. And also there's no context. Like if your sister-in-law introduced us, then you would know that if you did something not so nice to me, someone would be hearing about it. But I think we are lacking some of that context right now, and we're just not treating each other with as much integrity as we should be.
Yeah, I think the accountability piece is huge. What you're just saying right now, that if we introduced through a friend or a family member, you're going to have someone to answer to as to why it didn't work out. But the challenge about that is, as you said, is you can't control that. Like you can't control someone being responsive. And so it becomes harder and harder to put yourself out there and feel like, oh, I thought someone told me last week, oh, I'd scheduled a date. We've been talking for 3 days straight. And then all of a sudden, even though we set a date and place and time, when I text to confirm, the person has ghosted me. And it's like, I have no idea what went wrong. And so there's a sense of wanting everyone to be more confident, but there's also a sense of like, how much can we take?
I totally agree. And it's interesting because I'm married, you're married, I've been with my husband for a long time. We, in a way, are a bit removed from rejection. But I have a 2-year-old, and I was talking to different families about who we would do a nanny share with. And this woman basically wrote me like a breakup text, essentially being like, we don't want to move forward doing a nanny share with you. And I was hysterical. And I know that sounds crazy, but it was like the first time that I'd really felt that rejection in a while of someone like meeting you, getting to know you and saying, no, I don't want to, quote unquote, be with you. And I think sometimes married people forget how painful that rejection is. And so I just want to validate that feeling where, yes, dating really is hard. You're putting yourself out there and you're saying, this is who I am. And then someone says yes or no, I want to be with you.
Looking for love is almost like, it's a bit harder than that because it involves 2 people and you feeling like I have to convince this other person that I'm worthy.
I work with men and women, but a lot of the women are in their, let's say, mid-30s to mid-40s, and they're kind of wondering, like, did I miss the boat? And there's a sense of, if I wanted to run a marathon, I know how to train for it. If I wanted to get a promotion, I could just put a lot of effort in. And that dating is this uniquely hard thing because you can't just put effort in and get results. Someone else has to choose you as well. I think that's one of the reasons it's uniquely challenging is because it's outside of your individual effort and control.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was thinking, that work-wise as well, there is a sense of I can put in more effort and I can not control the outcome, but I can impact it hopefully a bit more closely.
And my husband and I talk about this all the time because work is very seductive. If I have more input, then I'll get more output. And you sort of know what the path is. And you can kind of say, like, well, if I crush work, then I'll get this promotion, then I'll make more money.
It
And
looks
like
like this
dating
place
just
is
isn't the
cleared out.
same thing. There's not like a guaranteed reward if you put effort in. And so I do often say to people that I work with, like, don't fall for the seductiveness of work because, yes, it's easily measurable and it can make you feel good when you get those promotions or that
Be a
affirmation,
lot
but
safer with
also
some walls
remember
around
that
us.
you should put
Big
effort
walls.
into love too. I don't really think it works when you're just like, okay, like I'm just going to spend my 20s on work and then in my 30s I'll start dating because you'll probably be behind. You haven't developed the skills that you need to really be a great dater.
So if effort's the catalyst in work, what's the catalyst in love?
I do think you need a lot of effort in love. It's just that it's not as guaranteed. Like, I think in
Hey
hustle
folks, I'm back.
culture, all of this work environment that you've been seeing, let's say for the last 10 years, like productivity
I
and
have to slow
work
down.
maxing and this and that, I think people just fall into it because it feels like you know what the result will be. So it's more that it's less about work as effort and love isn't, and it's more that work feels like some guaranteed results. And I remember about a year ago, I was working on a project and I was talking to single daters in their mid 20s.
Can't
I
keep
talked to
this
this
up.
guy, like super handsome, fun guy, like definitely the type of person I would have been drawn to when I was in my 20s. And he was like, yeah, why would I go on a date that could potentially go nowhere when I could just be at home and edit a YouTube video? And I was like, what? Like, it blew my mind. Like, I just didn't understand. And he was like, well, if I edit the YouTube video, like, I know I'll get this many views and I'll improve in this way, whereas the date has no guarantee. I think that's sort of one of the things that I'm seeing right now is
Gotta
that
put down some
people are
fucking looks.
struggling with dating because it is a lot of unknown, whereas work seems like more of a known quantity.
I completely agree with you. How do we then train the human mind to be okay with investing in an area that has very little chance of return? But if you found the return, it's like striking gold and life changing. How do you discipline yourself to put in effort in an area which, as you're saying, is uncertain?
I'm glad we're talking about this because this is definitely the thing that I've been obsessed with lately. So, from a coaching perspective, step one is just to be really, really clear on your goal. And that's why I was so happy to see that despite what I might have thought, Gen Z really is romantic and excited about finding someone. And so I think you have to be clear on your goal in order to overcome a bunch of hurdles and discomfort to get there. And the second thing is what we're calling chalant dating. So everyone knows what nonchalant means. It means you act detached, you pretend that you don't care. And it's really this battle of who can care less. And I feel like dating has been in this area for a while now, let's say like at least a decade. And I just hear this all the time. Oh, he waited 5 hours to text me back, so I'm going to wait 6 hours. And when I dug into why this is happening, I feel like a lot of it is because of this surveillance culture that we have now, where it used to be that if you sent someone a text message and it was a little embarrassing or, didn't quite hit the mark, like it disappeared. But now it gets screenshotted and sent to the group chat, or worse, it makes it
I got here
onto
in no time at all.
Instagram or TikTok, or someone's doing a story time about it. And so I feel like we just live in a society where it's a lot harder to fail because if you fail, it feels like it's forever and it's shared with the world. And so what I'm seeing is that a generation that is afraid to embarrass themselves, for them, it's like the worst thing you can be is sincere. The worst thing you can do is be cringe. And the truth is that most things in life worth having, you have to take a risk for. I'm sure that you don't have this job because you just sat back and said, okay, well, if a recruiter reaches out to me, I'll take that job. It's like you literally created your dream job and your dream life by taking risks. And I have found with Gen Z that there's just such a fear of taking
I
risks.
think that
And
should
we're
do it for
finding
now.
this in the Hinge data as well. And so Gen Z is much less likely than millennials to be willing to have a deep conversation on the first date. They're much more likely to say that they have a fear of being too much. And so you have this generation that's afraid of rejection, afraid of trying, afraid of effort. And then, miraculously, this term came around, chalant dating, where people are like, you know what? I'm tired of that. I'm tired of playing games. I'm tired of the battle of who can care less. And now we're really seeing that term has skyrocketed. So we've seen a 217% increase in that term in the last year. And on TikTok, you'll see all these videos like I want a chalant guy. I want someone to chalant me down. And so chalant dating is a combination of effort and vulnerability. It's saying, I care, I'm going to show you that I care, and I'm willing to be vulnerable, even at the risk of rejection.
Yeah, and what's fascinating though is we always get into that trend of I want someone to be this way, and it comes back to the same thing of like, well, we're gonna have to be this way too, because there's only so much. I love that term because again, it's like it goes back to what you said earlier, which is the goal. If your goal is I want to find love and I want to commit to someone and be in a monogamous relationship long term, you're going to have to be chalant because guess what? Even when you've been with someone for 10 years, you still have to be chalant.
Definitely.
So the chalant never changes. It's always there. It's always care, effort, and vulnerability. And then it goes back to, well, if you don't know what your goal is, then of course you care more about what everyone else thinks or being cringe or being left on red or whatever it may be. And so it's that goal piece, I think, is so important.
Have you seen Heated Rivalry, or do you know about it?
I have not seen it. No. I know, I've heard about it from a million people, but I've not seen it.
I really liked it. I don't think it's overrated, but it's been amazing to see the reaction to that show. And I think one of the reasons why is that it's a lot of chalant dating. And really the show has this pivotal point where one of the characters, Shane, who's been holding back his feelings, becomes more chalant. And he says this famous line, come to the cottage. I want you to come to my cottage. And that's really about him showing effort and being vulnerable, and that changes everything. And people have really been drawn to the show because it's about loving out loud and yearning for someone. And I think people are missing that. And we just have this entire generation, and maybe even, more than just Gen Z, that's sort of like sitting at home, hiding behind a screen, yearning for someone to yearn for them, but being so afraid of showing effort. I just think it's a shame. It's like, when did effort become cringe? When did trying for something become embarrassing? I think if you look at the psychology behind it, it really has to do with fear of rejection. And we found at Hinge that 95% of daters say that they have this fear of rejection. But if you just have people sitting at home not willing to try, then they're never going to get this thing that they clearly want, which is finding a great partner.
Yeah, and I think documented rejection's a painful point. It's what you said about the surveillance.
Yeah.
Like if someone's not replying back and then it goes to the group chat, or you send a text where you were really vulnerable and all of a sudden that text ends up in another group chat, and that's concerning because you don't want to be exposed for being vulnerable. And I think that comes back to what you're saying. There's another statistic here that hits on that exactly. 40% of men aged 18 to 25 have never approached a woman in person. It sounds like that's happening because of a fear of rejection. It sounds like that's happening because of, well, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know how to start. It sounds like that's happening because we don't really do that anymore. So when me and you were dating at that age, that's all I ever did. All I ever had to do was pluck up the courage to go over to a girl in a bar or a restaurant or in the mall and say, hey, can I get your number? And I remember how stressful that was. Like, it was stressful even back then, but that was the move. And sometimes you'd get rejected, sometimes it would work. And so how do we even encourage, when we're saying people are losing basic connection skills, conversation skills, people are worried, if I go up to someone, will I look like a creep? People are worried I get rejected in public. How terrible will it look? Everyone has their phones out now. How do we even begin to think about giving people these skills?
Everything you're saying, I agree with, where people listening to this who may have been married for a while, or they're millennial, Gen X, and older, they might be like, yeah, people have always been afraid of rejection. But I think what we're really calling out here is that this is a new and distinct thing, where Gen Z, by nature of the surveillance culture, and also I do think the pandemic, people don't want to bring up the pandemic anymore, but it's like, if you came of age during the pandemic, it did impact your social skills. And a lot of the Gen Z daters that I talk to say, I'm much more comfortable communicating through a screen, or I want to be able to check it with ChatGPT first. And it's like, sure, you can use those as strategies to get to the date, but once you're on the date, it's still like the analog version of like two people talking. You have to be able to make conversation. In terms of people approaching each other in public, I think the answer there is really just to work on experiencing discomfort and working through it, and being able to see that rejection can actually be redirection. So when you hear a bunch of no's, those are no's that you're hearing on the way to a different yes. And so you have to get a bunch of no's to figure out what's right for you. And I think that if you're so fearful of a no, you never try and you never get to that yes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another one that reminds me of your hesitator. So this stat, this is why I put it in there. So 69% of Gen Z respondents say they're not ready for a relationship, even though they may want one. Why do you think that is?
That absolutely sounds like hesitators, and maybe we're talking about a generation of hesitators. And so when you dig into the psychology of a hesitator, a lot of it is around, I'm not enough. I'm not where I need to be yet. And so I'll talk to, let's say, a male dater in his 20s in New York, and he'll say, I can't date until I make six figures. And I find this is especially true with men, where there's this sense of women need me to be a provider. And for a number of sociological, cultural reasons, they don't feel like they're able to be that yet, so they don't even put themselves out there. But then, on the other hand, we have the research and the insights into what women want. And so only 6% of female daters say they want a man who's the solo provider. And 72% of women on Hinge said that they'd much rather have someone who puts in effort than someone who makes more money. And so you have men saying, I'm not eligible, I can't be the provider that I was told I need to be. And women saying, actually, things have changed. I am more of a provider than my mother's generation or my grandmother's generation. And so what I want is emotional intelligence, emotional availability, effort. And so you have two people who misunderstand what the other person wants, and then they're not putting themselves out there.
That speaks to the root of so many challenges. When I spoke, and we're talking about heterosexual relationships, when I speak to women who say to me like, well, I just can't find the right guy, there's no good guys out there. And then when I speak to guys, they're like, well, I can't get a match on an app. And so then you go, wait a minute, what's going on here? And where are we? So what are the other things that you're seeing that are almost causing this tension between men and women? So one of them being men think they need to be earning six figures. Women are saying, hey, we're happy to contribute. What are the other tension points that you're seeing that you think are misleading us from the actual point of what we're looking for?
Yes. And so just to emphasize that effort point in chalant dating even more, I hear from women where they're like, this guy, he doesn't need to fly me to the moon. I just want simple things. I want him to remember the name of my best friend from work. I want him to know that I have a big meeting and send me a text wishing me good luck or following up afterwards. And so women are saying, like, I want effort and I want care, and that's more important to me than money. And the men are just like, well, I was raised to, be a lion, and the lion has to provide. And women are like, wait, no, I want a tiger who's emotional. And he's like, but I wasn't raised for that. And so I do feel like the dating hasn't caught up with the data. The dating of how we interact and
Did you delete? To be honest, for WhatsApp, I don't know how to bring the messages back, because for me the same thing. Whenever I delete WhatsApp and they have it again, and they wanna to have the same conversation as before, I cannot get it back. So in WhatsApp, I really cannot help you, but because I lost all my pictures as well from the phone, and I really don't know how to help you on this.
I'm making headway. Shouldn't be long now. Great!
We need you to put eyes on a new area. Here's your shit.
And how in heterosexual relationships people perceive each other hasn't caught up with the fact that we do live in a different society where women are earning more money, and soon 2/3 of college graduates will be women, and so there's really a disconnect there.
On eBay, every find has a story. Like if you're looking for a vintage band tee, not just a tee, the band tee from the last show your favorite band ever played. You wore it everywhere, then your best friend started wearing it, which was cute until they unfriended you and took it with them, which was not so cool. Anyway, now you're on eBay, and there it is. Same tee from the same tour, still living in your memory, rent-free forever. See, the things you love have a way of finding their way back to you. But eBay isn't just for getting whatever your ex or ex-best friend stole back. It's also for that rare championship foul ball you caught, then heroically gave to the kid next to you. And where else are you going to find your first car? The one you wish you never sold, but now finally get the chance to take back home. For good this time. Shop eBay for millions of finds, each with a story. eBay. Things people love. There's a few things you said there that really caught my attention, and they're two very different things. The first one is this idea of men were not raised to be that vulnerable tiger, as you put it. And I do see that as being a real challenge for men, where the men that do feel they're vulnerable feel that they're not strong enough for women. And the men that feel like they're trying to become financially successful may not feel emotionally available, or women may not feel they're emotionally available. And then you're stuck in this catch-22. How does a group of men go on to, it's almost like a big challenge to say, how do we get men in society to actually develop some of those emotional intelligence skills?
I just want to acknowledge that it's really complicated and that I hear it from both sides. So there's this quote that I love from Brene Brown where she says, women beg men to be vulnerable and they really want them to open up. But the second that they do, women can't stand it. And so it's like we tell men that we want them to be vulnerable, but actually in many ways we want them to follow these scripts of masculinity. And so I think as a society, we're still sort of figuring it out. Like there used to be more traditional gender roles, and I'm glad that we've developed past that. I'm glad that I can make an income and like I love my life and I love my career, but I also understand why people are confused, because when there's more ambiguity and more blurred lines, then people are figuring out their roles. And I think what you said is exactly what I'm seeing as well. You have men who aren't sure how vulnerable women actually want them to be. And then you also have women that are successful in making money, and then they fear that men are going to find them intimidating, or they don't
Which is not their fault either.
And so I feel like we're just kind of in that messy middle where like there was the way things were for a long time. And like for most of history, like men have had all the economic power, all the earning power. And then for a bunch of things that have changed, let's say in the last 50 years with feminism and other things that have progressed, you now have brand new rules. And I think people just haven't figured it out. But what makes me sad about it is it just leads to a lot of misconnections.
Yeah, the picture you just painted feels very true to me, that we had these very clear structures that I don't think were healthy or good in any way, but they were clear. And what's happened now is we've moved into the age of nuance. And because our brains are not designed to deal with nuance as well, we kind of don't know how to navigate those things. And I would honestly say, and maybe you'd say the same about you and your partner, I would say that my wife and I kind of toggle a lot of nuance for our relationship to work. We don't really have we have some very clear roles and some very not clear roles. We have some parts of our relationship that are totally different to what we both imagined our life would be. We live across cities, we travel a lot, we spend a lot of time together and don't see each other for time. So there's so many nuances that we can't stay tied to our gender roles to make the relationship successful, because that would just make us weaker. And it's almost like we've got to rise above those but the new rules haven't been set yet and we don't know what they are.
I definitely agree. And I would say I have the same thing in my marriage. So I do 100% of the laundry. My husband does 100% of the garbage. That's because I like doing laundry. It doesn't bother me and he doesn't want to do it. But in other ways, we kind of mix those gender roles up. So like he's 100% in charge of like our food, our groceries, feeding our daughter. Like people ask me what she eats. I'm like, I don't know. That's his department. And so I agree that there's a lot of nuance. I think that just pulling back and kind of zooming out, people are struggling right now because there are way fewer rules. Like if you went 200 years ago, what were my ancestors doing? Well, I'm Jewish, so they would have known what to wear. They would have spent their days praying or studying the Torah or knowing exactly what they could and couldn't eat. A matchmaker would figure out who to marry. There were just so many more rules that told you who you were. And now we've broken open a lot of those rules. And I think people are really struggling with knowing what to do. And in some ways, they're craving rules. And so I don't think that where society should go, or certainly where I want it to go, is going back to traditional gender roles. I'm
Definitely
just,
not.
yeah, and I don't want that at all. But I'm just acknowledging that I think without rules, people are struggling.
Yeah.
And you can even see this in the rise of certain aspects of the manosphere, or, you know, Catholicism is having a moment where I think people really feel like I just want someone to tell me what to do, because when it's up to me, I don't think I'm necessarily making great decisions.
And that's hard because I think we all know enough people who followed the perfect trajectory their life should have gone in and not been happy when it was decided by others. And almost agency and awareness are just such superpowers and privileges that we all get to decide who you spend your life with and what city you live in and what you do for work. That I almost want to, help people feel empowered that those are beautiful things to decide and you don't want to outsource them. So let's go through my results and then you can tell me how they can improve and what to do with them. So just to caveat again, I answered this as who I was when I was dating, and I answered this as friends of mine who are dating right now, because that was my best way of doing it. So it says, thanks for taking my 3 dating tendencies quiz, which everyone can take as well. We'll put the link in the on the screen right now and in the comments. You scored equally high on the hesitator and the maximizer tendencies.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So sometimes people get both, but if you have the hesitator tendency, that usually overrides it because it means that for these other reasons, you're not dating at all. And so I imagine that maybe the maximizer is who you were when you were dating, and maybe the hesitator is your friends who aren't dating right now.
That sounds very accurate. Yeah. If anything, I had a bit of the romanticizer in me too.
I could also see that. I wasn't.
I'm such
we're
a
still
romantic.
getting to know each other.
I'm like fully an idealistic, romantic kind of person.
I mean, I think just like messy love, 8 rules of you have.
Yeah.
This is your favorite realm. So I'll just talk through each one and kind of how to overcome it. So we talked about the romanticizer, and so for them, they really believe that there's one person out there for them. There's research from a psychologist named Renee Franiuk, who breaks this into a framework called the work it out mindset versus the soulmate mindset. So people with the soulmate mindset believe if you find the right person, everything will be easy. And people with the work it out mindset know that when you're in a relationship, you have to put in effort to make it work. And so what we find is that people with this soulmate mindset, it's actually easy for them to get into relationships because they believe in love and they fall hard. But the moment that something tough happens, they think, can't be my soulmate. If it were my soulmate, it would be effortless. And so they give up too easily. And so my homework for the romanticizers out there is to shift from the soulmate mindset to the work it out mindset, and to understand that if you're putting in effort, then you're doing it right, not wrong.
I love that. So well put.
So then the next one is the maximizer, which is I was definitely a maximizer because I live in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. A lot of people I work with are maximizers. And I think our culture breeds maximizers because before I buy anything, I mean, it's so pathetic. I'm looking it up on Google. I'm checking Wirecutter. What's the best vacuum? What's the best Bluetooth headphones? It's almost like I've lost the confidence in like buying something. I need to know like every single detail. And like we do this when we travel and if we're eating something. And so there's a tendency in our culture to do what's called relation shopping, like to shop for someone as if it's a product and then say, well, I want the looks of this girl, the ambition of this girl, the family background of this girl. And then to think if we just keep searching, we'll find the perfect person. And what happens is people just wait too long and then they realize I I have fewer opportunities now, or the girl that I rejected 10 years ago, the guy I said no to 5 years ago, like they've gone and found someone great and now I'm alone. And so for the maximizer, the solution is really to switch from maximizing to something called satisficing. So, satisficing is a term from the Nobel Prize winner Herbert Simon, and it's a portmanteau of the words satisfy and suffice. So, this is how satisficing works. It's not about settling. Settling is such a curse word in my world, I'm sure for you too. Like, no one wants to be told to settle. It's the S word. But instead, satisficing is this idea that you get super clear on what you want. You say, these are my deal breakers. These are the things I must have. You know, if you want to have the same religion as someone, if you really want them to care about animals, if you want to have a certain number of kids. And once I find someone that has those really important qualities to me, I'm going to commit to them and try to make it work. Versus what a maximizer does, which is they find that person and they're like, great, well, if she exists, I'm going to find her, but in an even hotter version. And so satisficing is really about knowing what's important to you, finding someone that satisfies that, and committing. And this really important thing that I want to get across to people is that it's not about making the perfect decision. It's about how you feel about your decision. And all of the research on maximizers show that they often feel regret about their decisions because once they make a decision, they're thinking, well, what else could I have had? Whereas a satisficer, they're much happier in life because they make a decision, they commit to it, and that's what matters. It doesn't matter to make the perfect choice. It matters how you feel about your choice.
Yeah, and these are, it seems like everything you're offering are like these really balancing principles, but require a lot of work to wrap your head around when you've been conditioned for 20, 30, 40 years to be a maximizer. It's hard to suddenly recognize the value of satisficing because it's worked for you, right? Like being that ambitious, driven A-type person has worked for you. And now in love, you're like, well, maybe it won't work for you in this area specifically.
I think that's a crucial point, is that what works for many people in other aspects of their life, whether it's exercise, making money, work, doesn't always apply in dating. And there is this alchemy, there is this sense of two people coming together. And it's why, you know, no one has an algorithm that perfectly predicts who you're going to be with. It really is this thing where two people are in front of each other, choosing each other. And when you're in a relationship, you choose each other every single day. And I think that you have to take the mindset that you apply to work and other optimization, and you have to switch it when it comes to dating and relationships.
Yeah, I also wanted to touch on, just briefly on the top priorities you mentioned, this idea. Sometimes when I hear people's top priorities, my number one reaction is, that doesn't make them a good partner. Mm-hmm. So, for example, even the three you mentioned is what people may say. And I know they weren't things that you said or we were coming up with a list. But when I think about like someone being of the same faith, it's helpful, but I know lots of people in my faith that I would never have married. And so the point is, that doesn't make them better at being in a relationship. It just gives us some common ground. Or like even like liking animals or whatever it may be. And I know those were just scattergun things. Yeah, you're just throwing things out. But I hear things like that where it's like, I really want to find someone, like I don't want to marry a doctor. And I'm like, what? Like, how is that even a category? Because unless you're really clear about the fact, I don't want someone to have late nights and busy schedule, if that's the reason. But if it's a personality type attached to that career, I'm like, how do you even know that? Like, people are so multifaceted. It's not possible that every doctor in the world is X or every, you know. So I guess my point is, sometimes I worry with people's top priority list because if your top priority list doesn't make someone a better partner and better at relationships, it doesn't actually matter.
I'll share the research on what does and doesn't matter for long-term relationship success. So the doesn't matter one are things that people think matter, but matter less than people think they do. So the first one is looks. Of course, you want to be attracted to your partner. Of course, you want to have that chemistry with them. But what we know is that over time, your feelings towards someone adapt. So you're really attracted to them in the beginning, but over time you sort of get used to how they look. And this happens in many parts of life. There's this idea of adaptation. It's why a year after winning the lottery, many people's happiness levels revert to what they were before they won the lottery. We sort of get used to what's around us. And that's also true for the second one, which is money. Yes, money makes things easier. Money can get rid of some problems in relationships and buy you some time back. But I think when people focus too much on money, they really miss out on the fact that it's not correlated with long-term relationship success. Other things that people mistakenly look for include having really similar personalities. Well, I know that 2 of me in a relationship would be way too much.
Me too.
And 2 of my husband in a relationship might be too little. And so it's actually great to find someone not who's the same as you, but someone who balances you. And the same thing is true with people who look for the same hobbies. Yes, maybe if you both love wine, that's great. But if you love wine and your partner doesn't, you can go have fun drinking wine with someone else as long as your partner doesn't judge you for it. Now let's talk about the things that matter more than people think they do. So the first one is kindness. And I think that this is just completely underestimated. And part of it is because it's not that easy on a dating app or just online to see someone's kindness. And so when you're out on a date with them, I want you to look for things like how they treat the wait staff, how they treat people that they don't need anything from, even how they treat you. The second one is emotional stability. And this is really about someone who can get through a relationship and not react, that they can actually take a beat, see what the situation is, and really respond rather than react. And this is correlated with great relationships. And then some of the other ones are a growth mindset, something that I know you talk about on the show. And so someone who, when they're met with a challenge, they can say, okay, well, I don't have that skill, but I'll create that skill, versus somebody with a fixed mindset who says, you know, you're born with the skills you have, and like, I'll never become good at that because I'm not good at that now. And then the ability to fight well together. So people think, oh, I want to find someone who I don't fight with at all. It's like, no, fights are inevitable. And there's research from the Gottmans that says that 69% of the fights you have are perpetual. That means you're going to constantly fight about it for your whole relationship. Like, I'm an early bird and my husband is more of a late bird. And like, we always disagree about time and when we get to the airport. And so it's about fighting well. It's not about not fighting. And then the final one, which has become super important to me and as part of my questions of the post-date 8 that we'll talk about, is what side of you that person brings out. And this is really crucial because so often we date someone for their resume, their bio data. We say, he has all the qualities my mom told me to look for. He went to the right schools. He has the right job. But if when you show up, he makes you feel anxious or insecure or less than, or he doesn't laugh at your jokes, which makes you think, oh, am I not as funny as I thought I was? Pay attention to that. That is your body telling you that you don't feel comfortable with this person and they're not bringing out the side of you who you want to be. Because whoever you marry, you're going to be the side of yourself that they bring out. And so much of what I try to do is to help people tune into their nervous system and to how they feel on the date and after the date, because who cares about the resume? Who cares about their job? Do you like who you are around them?
Yeah. I love that you broke that down from a data perspective, and it totally matches with what my intuition's been saying for so long, because everything you mentioned in the second category are completely about how someone is in a relationship versus how someone is anywhere else in their life, which just doesn't correlate. And I think so many people get into relationships because of all of the first script, and we don't even think about the second until you're deep into it, engaged, married, and then you go, wait a minute, like, this person isn't kind. Like, one of my favorite things about my wife is that she doesn't judge me. Like, that has to be one of the most freeing, most beautiful things, is that I can try something, I can do this, I can be bad at this, I can be good at this, and I don't feel judged. And that's like the ultimate experience of kindness, where I don't feel like anything I do is judged, whether I work too hard or work too little, whether I made a decision there or here. There's a sense of trust, and there's a sense of commitment, and there's a sense of understanding. At the same time, she's the first one to roast me and call me out if she wants to, and she's able to do that too. And I think that feels so safe, for me at least, in what kindness looks like. And I think of that as such an important thing to look for, as you rightly pointed out from the data, as opposed to like, are they this tall? Do they hang out at the same places as I do? Do they, whatever else it may be that comes up. What do you think is the biggest lie we've been sold in love?
I would have to say that the biggest lie that we've been sold in love is this idea of the spark. And it's sort of become my unofficial tagline or motto, which is the spark. And I really do believe this, because I think that when people go on dates looking for instant chemistry, they often miss out on great potential partners. So the first myth of the spark is that if you don't feel it at the beginning, you'll never have it. And we know from the research that that's not true. So only 11% of people experience love at first sight with their partner. And so I think because of rom-coms, because of Disney movies, we just sort of expect like, I'll know it when I see it. He'll walk into the room. We'll catch eyes at the farmer's market and we'll live happily ever after. And that's just not true. Like, so many people are with someone who they spent time with. I just saw this funny meme yesterday that was like, your coworker isn't hot. You just spend 40 hours a week 10 feet from him. And I was like, you nailed it. That's called the mere exposure effect. Oftentimes, the more times you're around someone or the more times you hear a song, the more you like it because you get more familiar with it. And so it's not true that if you don't feel the spark, you never will. The spark often does grow over time. And the second myth of the spark is that if you have it, it's a good thing. So sometimes the spark is a good thing and those people get married and have great relationships. But a lot of times it's actually our brains and our bodies giving off alarm bells. Like, I feel insecure around this person. Does he like me? Does he not like me? And so we interpret it as chemistry when it's actually anxiety. And having done this research for a long time, I actually find that certain people are just really sparky. They're either really good looking, or sometimes it's that they're really narcissistic and they can really layer on the charm. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be good long-term partners. It just means that in the moment you felt this connection to them or this attraction to them. But sometimes that spark is actually the sign of anxiety and not knowing where you stand with them.
Yeah.
And the third thing, the third myth of the spark is that if you have it, then the relationship is viable. And that's also not true. I researched so many couples going into my book and for my other work that started with the spark. They really had it at the beginning, and then they thought this is enough, but they fought all the time. They didn't have shared values. And so yes, the spark can get you pretty far into a relationship, but it's not enough. And so make sure that you don't get into the wrong relationship because you met the quote unquote right way.
This is so refreshing to hear because I feel like it just shows the power of cultural conditioning and messaging. It's one of the reasons why we launched our production company, Perfect Strangers, last week, because our goal was how do we create entertaining storytelling, but that's actually based on reality so we can transform these messages. Because like you said, we've all grown up watching two people lock eyes and everything makes sense, or drive off with the happily ever after. And that's what we want. And that's what I wanted, quite frankly. Like, that's what I was looking for when I was a teenager. And I always believed that that's what love was. And now feeling like I'm in love and being in a loving relationship that's evolving, I don't think that's what love's like at all. But it's hard when you're dating and you're hoping for it and you're going to all these dates and you're like, well, that was boring. That wasn't fun enough. And then you go and, even if you're watching a TV show, a reality show, which isn't real, like it's based on an island in the middle of nowhere.
Oh my
and
gosh.
everyone's in bikinis and whatever. And it's like, that's not real life. And so how is that going to, it's the mind, it's the kind of like the seeds of ideas that are planted in all of our minds of what healthy love looks like. You actually never see healthy love because it's just happening behind closed doors inside someone's house. They're not broadcasting it.
Right. It's not as fun on a TV show
Totally.
to see like the day in and day out work that people have to do. And it's the hard conversation that you have to have. It's supporting a partner when they're going through depression or ailing parents. It's just not as cinematic. And like what is cinematic is two people meeting each other, but we've become so obsessed with the we met. And if you meet someone and you're with them for 50 years, the day you met is 0.005% of your total relationship. And so when you hear that, you're like, who cares about the we met? But people want to say at the dinner party, well, I was at the library and I was returning a book and he was looking for the same book. And it's like, yes, that is cute and that is romantic. But what's romantic is the fact that you met and you're making a great relationship, not really based on how you met.
Yeah. Let's talk about dating apps.
Yay.
Because that is how the majority of people are meeting today,
Great.
as far as I know. Statistically, is that true?
Yeah, so since 2017, there's research from Michael Rosenfeld at Stanford that shows that meeting online is the #1 way that couples meet.
Yeah, right. So we have to talk about it.
Let's do it.
Do dating apps make us feel like we're replaceable?
I think that there is a big sense of the paradox of choice, this idea that when we have so many options, we don't value each one as much or that we regret our decision. And so I think the best part of dating apps is that it's a lot easier to find someone, especially if you're in what we call a thin market. So daters over 55, LGBTQ plus daters, someone where it might have been hard to go around your community and say, well, who's single and who's looking for someone like me? And so it really does a good job at connecting people who wouldn't have met otherwise. But I do think it introduces this idea of many choices, and people are struggling with that.
If you're at the opposite end where you're getting 0 matches on a dating app, how do you fix that? Where would you suggest people start?
The number one thing to do if you are having trouble getting matches is to fix your profile. And your profile is essentially like your billboard. And it's this one chance with limited real estate to share who you are and what you're about. And I can share some of the top tips we found at Hinge for making a great profile.
Yeah, please.
So the first thing is that your first photo is so important. Just from watching people go through profiles, I can tell you that what they do is they look at the first picture, they decide if they like you or not, and then based on that, they keep looking. So the first picture really matters a ton. And you want one that's a clear headshot. Doesn't have to be a professional headshot, but I can see what you look like. You're not wearing sunglasses. There's no shadow. There's no filter. Just show me what you look like. That's really where to start. And obviously it should be flattering. Then you want to have a variety of photos that show me different parts of yourself. So it's almost like show me the story of who you are. A mistake that I see people making a lot is, if a guy likes anime, he'll write about that on his Hinge profile. He'll have photos from anime, and it's like, got it. You love anime. Hopefully the next person does too. But isn't there more to you? Show me more variety. And so you want to have the first headshot, and you want to have a photo of you doing an activity that you love. So it could be cooking, hiking. My friend is a magician. He has a picture of himself on stage. Then you also want to have a full body shot. Some people don't like that, but it's true. People are looking for what you look like. And then you want to have one with friends and family. Give me a sense of what it would be like to date you. Show me that you have people that care about you and that you spend time with. And then for your prompts on Hinge, you want a mixture of humor and vulnerability. So, if you love dad jokes, include that. I love on Hinge, there's voice prompts where you can record something funny. So my friend has one where the prompt is how to pronounce my name. And then he says, Joe. And obviously, some people write back and they're like, what? You think I don't know how to pronounce the name Joe? And he's like, not for me. And other people are like, I love your sense of humor. And so I think that's perfect. And that actually leads me to a big point around profiles, which is that you don't want to attract everyone. You don't want to be chocolate ice cream that everyone likes. You want to be, mint chip. You want to be something that some people like and some people don't like. And in our research at Hinge, we actually found this where we did an experiment. This wasn't on Hinge. It was with different people, and they knew they were participating, where some people wrote on their profiles really specifically that they were looking for something serious. And other people wrote that they're, just looking for someone kind and adventurous. And what we found was for the people who wanted something serious, they liked those more serious profiles way more. And the people who weren't looking for something serious were turned off by their profiles. And that is exactly what you want. You want to turn the right people on and the wrong people off. You want fewer options, but you want those options to be really aligned with what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's great. And you can really then filter out the nonsense, because if you want something serious, why waste time?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a popularity contest. It's not to get the most likes. It's really be more efficient. Match with the people who want what you want. On Hinge, we have dating intentions where you can say looking for long-term, short-term. Just get more specific about what you're looking for, and then the right people are going to find you. If you're trying to be, the golden retriever that everyone likes, it's just harder to actually find the right match.
Yeah. I want to try something with you.
Sure.
We have 2 Hinge dating profiles where we've got permission from the individuals for their face to be used in their pictures. And I'm going to pass this to you in a second. And I want you to rate them and help them based on the scale you just told us what we can do right. So there's one guy and one girl. So I'm going to show you this one.
Wait, I thought this was Will Arnett. Is it?
It's not. It's
oh my
not.
God, it looks, that's so funny.
It's not Will Arnett.
Okay. So the first picture, I would say it's not a headshot, but it's, I do get a sense of what this person looks like. There's good lighting. I feel like the body language is a little closed off, just standing in that way, arms in front of you. To me, I'm not Vanessa Van Edwards, but I feel like it kind of gives me a sense of someone who's a little more timid, not as confident. But I think that the first photo is okay, but let's see the rest of the profile.
Okay, good. That's helpful.
Okay, a random fact I love is that honey never expires. I just don't love that prompt. It's not one of my favorites because it doesn't show me anything about who you are. And I like to think about your profile not just as what you write, but even the prompts you choose to respond to. And I like to think about it as almost like a menu at a restaurant. You should choose a prompt that shows who you are. You should choose a prompt that shows what you're looking for. And so I think a random fact, it's like, okay, maybe that's a good conversation starter where someone can say, I didn't realize that, but it's just not that revealing. And even being towards the top of the profile, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a waste of special real estate.
Love how honest you are. This is very useful.
Sure.
This is very helpful.
It never crosses my mind to not be honest.
No, but
okay.
It's very helpful because I think these are the things that we all trip ourselves up for. We want to help them find love. So.
For sure. Okay, so this one is interesting. So for work, they said entertainment. So one thing I've seen in talking to a lot of people about their profiles is that, talking to people who look at profiles is that when someone's too vague, people often jump to negative assumptions. So I worked with a client who said, and this is in the Bay Area, if a guy says entrepreneur, I assume he's unemployed, and I swipe left. And I was like, what? Like, there's just so many ways of being an entrepreneur. And so what I would say is my advice for him is to maybe be a little more specific because people might just assume the wrong thing. And my advice to people viewing this profile or other profiles would be, if there's something that gives you a yellow flag, don't just swipe left or say no. Actually ask instead of assume. Okay, so this next one, wearing the suit, I think what I get from it is that I kind of get the same thing as I do from the first one. Like he's making a very similar expression. It's kind of shot from a similar angle. He's not really smiling. I feel like it's a cute suit, but I don't get that much more information. Okay, the next one. Oh, this guy likes women, right? Was I making an assumption?
Yes.
Okay, the next one is with him and his friend. I like it because I think there's an intimacy there. It looks like he's wearing a cross necklace, which maybe gives me some more information. He's sort of making the same smile with no teeth. I think that one's okay. And then green flags, I look for appreciating sarcasm. I really don't like that one. We know there's a lot of Hinge app cliches, and one of them is the one, I'm fluent in sarcasm. I think this is similar where it's just like, I don't really learn that much about you. There's not a lot of detail. It kind of just makes you fade into the background. Okay, the next one I really don't like. He's looking away from the camera. I can't really see his face. To me, that picture kind of like pushes me away versus draws me in. Sorry, I'm being mean to this guy, but it's like there's a lot of room for improvement.
We're hoping that he can actually, this is gold dust. You're getting direct advice from
the next one. My greatest strength, picking the spot. I'm just like, bro, there's so much more that you could say here. Just get specific. There's this rule in comedy that the specific is the universal. The more specific you are, the more people will actually relate to it and the funnier it is. And I'm just like, this is so vague. Picking the spot for what? And then the next one is a video of him playing tennis. I like that it's, someone doing an activity you love, but it's like, it's from behind. Could it have perhaps shown you from the front? And so guys especially tell me like, I don't have better pictures, or like, I don't go around asking my friends to take pictures of me. I know our friend Jared Freed in his special 37 and Single, he's just like talking about how like, imagine if guys were like girls, like at the bachelor party, like, okay, take a picture of me here. But still, guys, like step it up.
Yeah.
And then... I think I don't mind the tennis one, but I would much prefer if it was from the front. And then the last one is him with his friends. And I'm kind of like, okay, I see the crew. So going back to the top, what I would say is I want you to find a better first photo that really shows you headshot style, clearly what you look like. And I don't really see you smiling with your teeth much, but I would love to see one of those. I want you to just start from scratch on the prompts. I want you to give more specific answers, longer answers. I want to have a clear sense of who you are, what you're about, what you want. And I would maybe keep one of the more professional looking photos, either the first one or the one in the suit. I like the ones of you and your friends. but I would maybe choose. No, I actually like both of them. I think the tennis one, can you try to get one where I can see your face? And yeah, just add more specificity and tell me more about what you're looking for. Because right now, I think this profile feels generic, and I think we could make it more specific.
Great advice. So, is there a need to rate you on a scale of 1 to 10 or not really?
Because I don't know him, it's harder for me to do that. Like in my coaching, a big conversation I have with people is I say, this profile doesn't match the person I'm seeing in front of me. You're so vibrant, you're so funny. I don't see that here. And a great achievement for me in coaching was when I had this client and he was South Asian, and people often put him in a box. They were like, South Asian engineer, like I know everything about him. And then I was like, he's actually so silly. And we made his profile extremely silly, and we added videos of him wearing different costumes, and we really played that up. And then a few years after we stopped working together, he sent me a text that he was engaged, and that the person that he had gotten engaged to had first liked his Hinge video of him being really silly. And it's like, by being more clear about who he was, you couldn't put him in a box. You could actually see who he was. And so I don't have a rating for this profile because I don't know the person, so I don't know how true to life this is.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and just be more chalant.
Yeah, I love it. Great advice. So now I'm going to hand you another profile, this time of a woman, and I'd love to see what you have to say.
Great. It's funny because I just sometimes feel like women are way better at profiles because they just have so many more photos of them, and they're probably more comfortable asking their friends. So maybe first I'm just going to look at the whole thing to get a vibe, and then I'll have some comments. So first photo, I really like it. Like, I love the lighting. I like the vibe. I like her smile. You know, it could potentially be cropped in a little bit more. There's like a little more visual information and noise than we need. Like, I think it could be cropped more on her face, but I like it. And I think the number one thing is, can I see clearly what she looks like? And I can. Okay, the next one is my greatest strength, turning chaos into a good story later. I actually like that one. To me, reading between the lines, I get a good vibe from it, which is, I'm a person that can deal with different situations. Like, if something goes wrong, I'm not going to fall apart. And it actually reminds me, I used to work at Airbnb a long time ago, and we would talk about how like a really great Airbnb traveler was somebody who knows that when things go wrong, that's when they get interesting. And like, that's the vibe that I get from her, where she's not afraid of discomfort or adventure. She's like, it makes a good story later. So maybe I'm like overly reading into it, but I like that.
But that's probably good, right? It got you curious, it got you engaged.
Yeah.
That's good.
One thing I didn't mention on the other person's profile is this idea of a hook. So a lot of times people think about a profile as a monologue. I'm just talking at you. But a great profile should be a dialogue where I'm starting the conversation and you respond. So turning chaos into a good story later. And then she could add a question that says, ask me about the time that I almost got kidnapped in Vietnam. Then I'm like, holy cow, I want to hear about Vietnam. I want to hear about that story. And so
it initiates action.
And it also, especially for women attracting men, it's like, just make it easy for them. Just make it so that like they know what to ask you. Like, you want them to ask more questions, like make it easy for them to start the conversation. Okay, I like that it's executive assistant at production company, you know, versus the person who wrote entertainment. There's more information. So she wrote Christian, and I think this is interesting because when I've gone through profiles with people that are swiping, sometimes they see Christian and they're like, well, I'm not religious. She must be so religious to put it on there. I just don't think that's the case. That's a situation where you should ask instead of assume. So does Christian to her mean that she's in mass every Sunday, or does it mean that she celebrates Easter and Christmas? And so really finding out what that means to her. And then I love this. So on Hinge, she filled out her dating intention. So she's looking for a life partner, and she filled out her dating type, and she put monogamy. So especially in the Bay Area, there's so many people who are like, thank God Hinge added dating type, because I'm sick of going on dates with guys who are non-monogamous. And so anyway, I like that she used more of the information available. And for someone who's not looking for those things, she's going to turn them off, and that's a good thing. Okay, the next picture, super cute. I kind of get a preppy vibe, like she's holding this little parasol. She's drinking. I like it. Like, I think I can see what she looks like. She looks cute. We could kind of call this a full body shot, but I think what's great is that I'm just like getting a sense of her.
I need a break.
Okay, the next one is also great because it's showing her with her friend, but I can tell which one she is. So a mistake that people make is like you'll have like 10 guys in baseball caps, and I'm like, which one is you? Like, this is so annoying. Or like 10 girls in bridesmaid robes with the same southern curled hair. And it's like, this isn't Where's Waldo. Like, make it easy for me to see what you look like. And so for this one, it's like, I can tell like she's sort of glamorous. She has like, you know, a cute outfit, but it's really easy to tell which one she is. I go crazy for someone who can cook well, a truly spiritual experience. I think that one's good. I think she could have more details. Like, she could do another hook where it could be like,
I'm done scoping out
like
this
message
place.
me if you know how to cook paella, or like, let's have a French toast competition. Just something that's setting the other person
That's cool.
up.
I like that. Yeah.
Okay, the next one.
These are fantastic, by the way.
Sure. You know, the next one, it's so funny, you know, like the idea of like a male gaze.
Yeah.
It's like, I definitely think this is like a hot photo and like a guy would be into it. And like, look, like there is kind of the strategic game part. And I think that that is like a great photo. And then typical Sunday. Okay, this is probably my number one favorite Hinge prompt because there's so much you can do with typical Sunday. So let's see what you're out. Being outdoors, playing pickleball. She could play with you, Jay. Or spending time around any area that has dogs around. I think that's okay. Like, I get a sense of her, but I think it could like have more detail, or like being outdoors and playing pickleball, like sort of similar. And so I would say like great prompts. I think many people should use it, but I would like a little more specificity. Like, are you dumplings at home on a Sunday, girl? Are you having dinner with your family every Sunday? Like, I think a little more detail. Okay, she has the full body shot. One thing I would say is that she definitely looks like very glamorous in a lot of these, which maybe if that's her vibe, that's great. But I'm not seeing as much variety in terms of like, is she also just down to be with her friends? And so if this is truly who she is, where she's like, I love to like get dressed up, have a cute purse, have a drink in my hand, if that's who she is, then she's portraying that. But I think it's possible and probable that there's more to her, and that like she looks great in all the pictures, but they are a little bit one note.
So
of,
like a picture in sweats, if you spend time in sweats, or no?
Yeah, or
Is
like
that going too
maybe
far?
like her with her family being a little bit more like girl next door. And so this is another one where I'm like, I don't know who she is, so maybe this is accurate, and maybe she's like, this is what I'm doing right now. But I think she's maybe lacking a little bit of that variety. But I would say like this is like a good profile with potential for a little bit more variety and maybe a little more specificity. But I think she is like beautiful and chose great pictures, and we do get a sense of who she is and what she likes.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you, Logan. Thank you so much.
A deep reading
Really
of the
brilliant
Hinge
work.
profile.
Yeah, very deep. I love it. I mean, what you just showed us is that someone could be working on that first profile and have that up there and maybe get very few matches, not because they're not a great guy and not a great person and have so much to offer, but just because that's the bio, that's the resume that people are seeing, and there's nothing for them to engage on. I really appreciate what you said about making it easy for men, because I mean, I think about even back when I had to approach someone, it was so much more easier to approach a woman who made it easier for me to approach her. And it would take so much courage to approach someone who gave you no signals whatsoever. And so even for her, if she really wants people to lean in, giving them that opportunity to say, let's have a cooking competition or whatever it was, or whatever it may be, I think that invitation for action, that initiation is so important.
Right. It's like, it's not a test. It's a layup. Like, make it easy for the other person to know what to engage you on. And so if you aren't getting the number of matches you want, first thing I would do is make your profile as good as possible, show it to some friends, get some new pictures, say to your closest friend, is the person who you see in front of you the same person you see in this profile? And if not, change it. The second thing I would do is send comments instead of just likes. So this really trains the algorithm to show who you're looking for. Comments are much more likely to lead to a date than just sending a like, and it just shows more effort, right? We're talking about chalant dating, so put more effort in. Hinge actually just launched something within the past few months called Convo Starters, and it's a way to basically use AI not to write the message for you, but just to kind of spark inspiration, where it's like, if it's a girl playing chess, you know, there might be like a little bubble that pops up that says like checkers versus chess. And then you can say, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to ask her about backgammon. And so it's kind of just like that little coach in your pocket that's telling you, like, if you're stuck on what to say, here are a few ideas. And it has it like for each picture and each prompt.
We hear so many people say, though, there's no good people on the apps. Well, what are they missing?
Yeah, it's so complicated. Like, I hear that all the time. And I think there's plenty of good people out there. There's just all these misconnections. And I don't think it's just about apps. I think it's about everyday life. Like, I feel like we're just missing each other. And this has become kind of an obsession of mine. Have you heard of the term friction maxing?
I've heard of it. Please explain it. What is friction maxing?
So this is something I've been thinking about for a few years, but there was this viral article about friction maxing, and I was like, yes, like that's the word that I've been looking for. And so friction maxing is choosing to put more inconvenience into your life in order to have more human connection. Go to the grocery store instead of ordering Instacart. You know, take the subway where you're going to interact with people over taking an Uber. And it's like these tech companies have kind of convinced us your life should be as convenient as possible and you will be happy when you reduce friction. And I think that's a lie. Like, think about the definition of friction. It's when two things rub against each other. And if you think about that in the real world, it's like rubbing shoulders with someone in line at an event or just meeting new people. And so I think that we've become obsessed with self-care and boundaries. And like those things are great, but I think it's a little out of control where self-care often is selfish. This is my schedule and we can't hang out unless you can definitely do it on my schedule. Or like, I go to bed at 8 p.m. every night, so I could never go on a date with you in the evening. It's like in kind of protecting yourself from discomfort, you're really missing the chance to interact with people. And like, I'm just seeing this all the time and I see it with myself. Like, there just is that urge. What's the most convenient option? And I'm really trying to fight it in my own life, adding more friction in, being more around other people, fighting the isolation. And so I think that when you approach someone in public, it is riskier and you might get rejected, but you're creating friction that might lead to a great result. And so I think all of us have to increase our ability to withstand discomfort because it's going to lead to great stories and so many more relationships.
Yeah, well said, well said. Can you explain friction maxing, Shalon dating? Can you explain what rose gel is and why people are experiencing it?
Not my favorite topic, yes. Yeah, so rose gel is something that, you know, I don't hear about it as much now, but a few years ago where people feel like, oh, the people that I want to see on Hinge, I have to buy money or spend money on a rose to get them. And so what I would say is like the rose system does work and that we see that people that send a rose are 2 times as likely as other people to actually get to a date.
Yeah, that sounds like good odds. It's what's interesting about the friction maxing, going back to that, it's almost just helpful to be out there and bumping into people and meeting people because you actually become better at conversation, you find new things to talk about, you have more experiences. We have a loneliness epidemic in the world anyway, and so the ability to just be in public places and bump into people and other things, like, I mean, I'm pickleball's biggest promoter, but I have made so many casual pickleball friends just by playing pickleball at public courts. And it's just one of those things where you just start a game up with someone and you get to know each other, and next thing you know, you're hanging out. And I feel the same is true. I was at my friend runs a really cool acting class and he asked me to come check it out. And I went a couple of weeks ago just to observe. And everyone in his class, like, you could tell they just have this amazing community. Yeah. I was like, I wish everyone came to this class because there was such a great energy there and people were encouraging each other. They were kind. And I was like, you could easily find someone here to match with. I was just thinking about all the possibilities of places where there is community built around something singular, almost like we know that just, 30 to 40 years ago, people would meet at their church or place of worship. People would meet in the building they lived in. Like, you needed almost this singular place where you congregated for a particular need, which is how we met people, whether it was a Sunday roast or a family dinner and family friends were invited. And it almost feels like we've lost that. And I think that's what you're encouraging people to do.
Absolutely. And there was this quote going around last year, the cost of community is inconvenience. And I think people are just so obsessed with making their lives frictionless and not ever inconveniencing themselves that they forget that, yeah, it's not that fun to help your friend move, but that's part of being a friend and being in a community. And I would say in my life, I've sort of taken this to the extreme. So during the pandemic, my husband and I moved into this commune with 20 of our friends. And so we each had our own little apartment but you have 20 people living together and having dinner together every night. And those were some of the happiest years of my life. And yes, sometimes there was friction. You know, it's 2020. We had to have these like long, boring, antagonistic meetings about COVID protocol, but that was the price that you pay to live with your friends. And I think that we constantly choose what we think is best for ourselves, but what we really do is make things convenient, and then we are more isolated. And like when you're at home behind your screen, you're not out there meeting new people. And it's not just about meeting the guy you're going to marry. It's about meeting the girl who has a brother, who has a friend, who you're going to meet if you all go to that festival together. And I think that like if you tie a lot of the strings together that we're talking about, like there's a loneliness epidemic. There's men and women who are thinking that the other person wants something different from them. And like the more times that you put yourself in places where you're going to meet someone, the more friction you're creating, the more opportunity for connection that you're taking. And I hope that that's a big message that people take away from this conversation is be a chalant dater. Put your effort out there. Be willing to get rejected. Friction max. Put yourself in more situations where it's not convenient, but you're going to meet more people. And like, isn't that what life is really about?
Totally. It's so true. And I think it feels like the ethos of this whole conversation, which is like, seek discomfort, become more resilient, live with the challenge that there is a high rejection proportion of just finding the one. And the one thing I like to remind people also is that if everyone liked you and you liked everyone, it wouldn't be that valuable of a discovery. Like the beautiful thing about love is that you found someone who wants to work with you on it and you want to work with them on it. And how special is that? And if you felt that with every person you went out on a date with, or if every person responded to you positively, well, then we wouldn't value love as much. The reason why we value love and long-term relationships is because they're rare, because they're special, they're hard, they're not something that you feel freely available with everyone.
Absolutely. And I do this work. And my mission is really to help people find love because I think it's one of the most important things that you can experience. And who you choose as your partner, that's your board of directors. That's the person advising you, right? Like you become the average of the people that you're around and your partner is going to be one of those people. And so I think that it really deserves a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of care. And that the more that we can put that effort in and not be afraid of it, the more great relationships we're going to have.
Do you believe in right person, wrong time?
That's funny that you asked that because I've been thinking about it lately. So, you know, this is kind of a thing that people say, like, timing is everything. And I used to not believe that. I used to believe if it was the right match, the person would make it the right time. And my thinking on that has changed, where if you're dating someone, but they're in medical school and they really don't have time for you, I don't think it's going to work out. So I would say the right person during the wrong time is not the right person.
Got it. Yeah, it's a question I love to ask people because I feel like these are those, maybe the romanticizers who have this like way of thinking about something and it keeps them trapped.
Yeah, like I was just asked this question the other week where this person was like, oh, I was dating this guy, but he recently got out of a relationship and then we were fighting a lot and I ended things. Do you think it was timing? And I was like, no, I think you were fighting a lot because you weren't a good fit, not because of timing. And sometimes we can get really obsessed with timing. But I think that, like, you know, in behavioral science, so much is the environment. And it's like if the environment that you're dating in is that they're not ready, well, that means that you shouldn't be in a relationship.
Yeah. Do people quit relationships too fast now?
Yes, I think that people give up too easily. This is what we were talking about. So remember, there's the work it out mindset, the idea that, of course, relationships take effort. And so when you hit that inevitable rough spot, don't say, well, we disagreed on this. So instead of having a hard conversation, I'll just end it. And that really goes back to the ethos of what we've been talking about. Like, understand that relationships require inconvenience, discomfort, friction. And so when you have that first fight, say, wow, I guess you feel really strongly about that. And let's have a conversation about it versus being like, this is too much work. And so I would say, yes, dating apps provide more options to meet more people, but don't treat people like they're disposable because that's just a recipe for sort of burning and churning relationships and really understand that each relationship is an opportunity to invest in someone.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier about moving towards the workout mindset as you mentioned, like just it's almost like you're getting to practice what a real relationship looks like. And that first difficult moment is like this brilliant moment to actually realize what skills you do have, what skills you don't have, what attitude that person's willing to come at. I was wondering, I love that you have such, I mean, your advice, Logan, is so brilliant, and it's no surprise with the incredible work that you do online and offline.
Thank you.
But I really mean it. It's so great, and it feels so real and actionable and genuine. It's not playing a game. It's not some manipulation strategy. It's not, it's really authentic. When it comes to evaluating a great date, because as you said, we usually get distracted by the spark. If the spark is not there, we're probably not going to go out on another date. And if we force ourselves to go on a second date and there's no spark again, we're probably not going to go on a third. I think we have very limited tools to evaluate a successful date, but I know you have an approach that is far more comprehensive. What should people be asking after they go on a date with someone?
So I have this tool called the Post-Date 8, and these are 8 questions to ask yourself after a date. And the research behind this is really based on gratitude journals. So if every day you have to write down at the end of the day 5 things you are grateful for, it changes how you live your life, because throughout the day, you're looking for those small things and you're appreciating them, right? Like, I made the bus when I almost could have missed it, or it was really sunny and I got a table outside. So it trains your brain to look for the positives. And the same thing is true with this Post-Date 8. So these are 8 questions that you ask yourself after a date. And they are things like, what side of me did the person bring out? How did I feel in my body around them? Did I feel relaxed or did I feel uptight? Did I feel heard? Did I feel attractive? Did they make me laugh? And what's really important is that these questions are not, are they good enough for me? Is he hot enough? Does she have an impressive enough job? They're, who am I around them? And it goes back to what we said about dating for the dynamic versus dating for the resume. And so there's this idea of dating experientially. What is the experience of being around you versus dating evaluatively, dating to see if you're good enough for me.
Yeah, it's almost like you're either testing them or you're getting carried away. And what you're saying is that the evaluation 8 questions allow you to check in on yourself and see, how do I feel? Like, how is this going? And how is this for real, is what it feels like being together rather than what it feels like being with their resume, being with their data, being with, and so, yeah, we're either testing them, like, are they good enough for me? Are they not? Are they good enough for my friends? Or sometimes we're just so lost in our own world of like, will they like me? Do they like me? Right? We're in that opposite space of, am I good enough? The hesitator.
It's not, did I find them attractive? It's, did I feel attractive around them? I feel like that's such a big shift for people. And going back to the 3 myths of the spark, so many times people miss an amazing person because they're not sparky. And so my antidote to the spark is to look for the slow burn. And the slow burn is the person who may not be initially as charismatic or sparky, but they would be an amazing partner long term. I think this is one of the greatest contributions I've had to the discourse is I get so many emails from people that are like, I followed what you said. I looked for the slow burn. I'm engaged with slow burn and I'm so happy. This is the kind of guy I would have overlooked. And a way to use the Post-Date 8 is to do it after each date and to see over time, do I like them more and more? Because the sparky people often burn out quickly. And maybe after the 3rd date, you might say, oh, like it turns out he's like a little narcissistic, or we don't really have that much to talk about. Whereas the slow burn person, each time you date them, you are more curious about them. You like them more and more. So it's a journaling exercise, really, to track how you feel with different people and if your interest in them grows or decreases over time.
Yeah, I love that approach. I really hope everyone who's listening and watching applies it. I think it would change everything for them. Logan, I want to go a bit more philosophical with you, a bit more like higher level of like, how do you define love?
When you asked the question, I got a really strong internal feeling where I just heard the word acceptance. And I think it reminds me of what you said about you and Roddy, where she really accepts you for who you are and you don't feel judgment. And when I think about the people that love me, I think about my parents, my sister, some of my best friends, my husband, my daughter, where it's like, you're not under the microscope. They're not deciding like, do I want to see you again or not? They're really just like, I love you in all your messiness. And I remember one time I was talking to my friend Kristen and I was like, sometimes I'm a little avoidant when I have a hard situation. She's like, duh, we all know that. And like, I got embarrassed, but I was like, what she's saying is like, I see you in your shadow and your light, and I love you for all of those things. And I think that acceptance and belonging is really what makes us feel safe. And I think one of the reasons why I've had the career I've had, which I feel really proud of, is because my husband is such a rock and I feel so
Time
much
for a doc to
acceptance
check
from
me
him.
out.
His love is really unconditional. And like when you have this foundation of unconditional love, like you can go fly high and like take a lot of risk and risk rejection because like you come home to this really beautiful foundation of acceptance. And when people want to find love, like I want that for them so badly because I also want them to tuck into their bed at night and like have that person that is unconditionally loving them. And that's really my wish for so many people.
That's a beautiful answer. I love that. Is love enough?
You need love, but it's not enough. So it's required, but it's not the only thing. And what you also need is sustained effort.
Be careful.
And, you know, we're at the age where a lot of our friends are having young kids, right? And I get so many questions from clients of mine, close friends of mine, etc., where they're like, I just don't feel as connected. And one of my mentors, Eli Finkel, he has this great book called The All or Nothing Marriage. And he talks about different times in a relationship. And he has this great word, recalibration. So sometimes if someone's dealing with a hard situation at work or a difficult moment with their parents or having young kids at home, you have to recalibrate your expectations. Like maybe it's not going to be the most fun year of your marriage. Maybe you're going to have sex a little less often. Maybe you're going to fight a little bit more. So recalibrate your expectations in those hard moments instead of like exiting. Just understand that it's going to be a slightly bumpier ride. And so I think that true relationships last through some really hard years, sometimes some infidelity, and that love is enough to get you into a relationship, but it's not enough to keep you in it.
I love the recalibration, and it's so fascinating how we think things should stay the same through all this change, right? Most of us want our relationship to stay exactly the same, no matter how much change we're going through, whether that's moving country, changing job, having a child, all these major transitions in life, which naturally require us to reestablish what our connection pattern is, the amount of time we spend together is, all of that. And all of a sudden we just throw it out the window and say, well, if you love me, it should be this way. It should be this way always and forever. But how would that even be possible? It's fascinating that it's perplexing that we're that way, but it's fascinating too that we think things staying the same is a sign of love.
Absolutely. And there's a great behavioral science principle for this, this transitive fallacy, where we sort of think the way that it feels when something changes is the way it'll feel forever. So we think that falling in love is the same as being in love, but it's totally different. It goes back to adaptation, right? We adapt to the things around us. So winning the lottery will feel good for a certain period of time, and then being wealthy is a different state. And so if you're in a relationship and it doesn't feel as intense as when you first fell in love, that's the natural cycle. And if you just keep being a person that breaks up and searches for that falling in love again, you're sort of missing the bigger picture.
Last one of these. What makes a good partner?
I think there's so many things that go into being a good partner. So we just talked about love as being accepted. So I think accepting your partner. Sometimes people are like, do you think people change? And I think my answer is sometimes they change, sometimes they don't. But you can't be with someone for their potential, because what if they never change? You need to accept them for who they are now, and they probably will change, but that's not a guarantee. I think communication, it's a cliche, but it's true. There's kind of this joke that like the answer to every advice column is always like, have a conversation. Like, what should I do with my neighbor who plays music? It's like, have a conversation. What should I do with my mother-in-law? She shows up without being invited. Have a conversation. It's like, yes, like conversations are what keep relationships alive.
Yeah. Wow.
And going back to chalant dating, I saw this stat that was like 90% of women, like what they really want is not to go to an expensive restaurant and not how much money the guy spent on the date, but really how invested in the conversation is he. And so I think communication is a huge one. And then I think the growth mindset, that really encompasses a lot. It's like life changes, you'll change. Do we feel like we're a team and we're on the same side and we're working together towards the life we want? Or are we adversaries that are on opposite sides of the pickleball court? And when you win and you go away with your friends, I lose because I have to stay home with our kid. And instead, it's like we over me.
How do you know if you're asking for too much?
There's a big difference between settling where you feel like you have these deal breakers that are really important to you and you're not getting them met, and satisficing, which is understanding that you should double down on the things that matter and compromise on the rest. So let me get a little bit more specific. And I actually wanted to answer this before when you were talking about, the things that matter and don't matter. So as people get older, especially, and I have this Netflix show, The Later Daters, and it's daters over 55. And so I have just seen this so much. The older you get, the more you add to your list because you're like, I've waited this long, she better be perfect. And so what happens is we confuse pet peeves for deal breakers. So a pet peeve would be something like, I'll date anyone except a mouth breather. It's like, come on, mouth breathing, that's not correlated with relationship satisfaction or not satisfaction. It's like something that maybe annoys you, but it's not that big of a deal. Or like socks with sandals. So it's like,
or even being 6 foot tall or whatever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I could go on a whole tangent about height, which is essentially like many women filter out men who are 6 feet. They want a man who's 6 feet or taller, but 86% of adult men in the U.S. are under 6 feet.
Wow.
So you're excluding 86% of possible matches over something that does not matter for long-term relationship satisfaction. And so, going back to pet peeves and deal breakers, the first thing I would do is make a list of what you think your pet peeves are, what you think your deal breakers are, what your must-haves are, and then truly think, if I didn't have this thing, would it matter long term? So, I need a guy with a good sense of style. It's like, do you? Can you take him shopping? Like, who cares? Versus something like, I have asthma and I need a non-smoker. Going back to religion, for you, maybe it wasn't just the religion piece, but for some people, if they're religious or they want to raise their kids in that faith, it is a deal breaker. So kind of go through each one and try to move things to the pet peeves category. And then when you're dating, go really hard on those deal breakers and be true to yourself, but be more flexible on the pet peeves because they don't matter.
Yeah, those icks.
I know.
Have you ever seen the guy on TikTok called Guy with the List?
No.
Okay, so check it out.
I will.
I have no affiliation, but I'm such a fan. So what he does is he finds videos of women on the internet that say they have an ick or they have something they don't like about men, and then he adds it to his list to not do that thing. So
that's so funny.
It's genius. And so
well, I feel like our friend Jared Freed is kind of like the king of the ick.
Is he? In what sense? Go on. I love Jared.
He has so many viral videos where he's like, I ask audience members why they rejected a guy.
Yeah.
And they were like, I really liked him. I was going to go home with him. But then he went to pay the bill and I heard,
yeah, this is...
and it's the sound of somebody opening a Velcro wallet.
That's so great. Yeah, that's exactly it. Some of these are even worse. I haven't checked these.
I don't mean to be an alarmist, but it's important to stay vigilant. A few weeks ago, I met this guy out at a bar. He seemed normal. His friends seemed normal, so I went home with him. The next day, I was leaving, and he said, "Oh, I'll walk you to the train station. I'm leaving as well." And out of nowhere, he just nonchalantly grabs his rollerblades and a speaker. And I was like, oh.
So then what he does is he takes it and he adds it to his list.
That's such a good bit.
And so his list has everything from don't wear goggles, don't leave an event early, have a different font, having a birthday is an ick. Like, it's just...
That's so funny. Okay.
Okay, lads, I just unlocked a new ick. This is so random. And I know people hate when people do icks. And it's like, how can you get the ick by that? That's so ridiculous. I don't know if anyone's ever said this one before, but like, when a lad has a birthday... Like what do you just be like, oh, happy birthday?
Oh my God, I could literally talk about this with you for hours because it's like, of course, there's like a sense of humor. I mean, first of all,
it's hilarious.
TikTok is so funny.
I know, I love it.
So many people are so hilarious. Like that girl nailed the delivery of like, I effed a roller skater and like a performative one.
Yeah.
But like, it kind of goes back to the earlier part of our conversation around men and like the script that they follow, because it's like a lot of women are saying, I make money, so I don't care as much if you make money. I want you to be more emotionally available. I want you to be vulnerable. But then they also sort of get punished when they are. And I think that that's just because we haven't really figured out what masculinity looks like in this age. And it's like, why is having a birthday embarrassing? Like, why can't like a 32-year-old guy like throw a birthday party? Why would that be cringe? And so, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on the ick, but maybe just the one that I'll say is that, are you using the ick to push people away because you're afraid of being in a relationship and it just gives you a reason to reject someone and not get close to them?
Yeah, I mean, that statistic on height just blew my mind. I did not realize that. that you're cutting out 86% of adult men
Oh my God.
in the United States. That's insane.
The height thing drives me crazy because, first of all, I am married to a short king and I'm very happy about it. But also, it's like, you know, if you were at a bar and you're sitting at a stool next to someone and you lock eyes and you have an amazing conversation and you talk about your hopes and dreams, and then the guy stands up and he's 5'8" or 5'9", are you not going to give him your number? No, you are, because you had a vibe, you had a connection. But if you think about Hinge as kind of your club and your filters as the bouncers deciding who gets into your club or not, when you set really stringent filters on height, age, distance, you're really blocking so many people from coming into your club. And then you're going up to people like me and you and saying, where's my husband? Where's my wife? I can't find them. It's like, yeah, because they're all waiting in line and the bouncer rejected them.
Yeah. So well said. We have 2 segments to end today's episode with you. We've invented a game for you called This or That. And this is for you. So we'll play that one first. So this or that. Someone who loves you more or someone you love more?
I think I want to love them a lot, but it's okay if they love me a little bit more than I love them.
Okay. Marry your best friend or someone you feel wild passion for?
Ideal, like for a lot of these, I'm like ideally both, but it's like I think the best friendship is going to last longer, but like you need to want to have sex with them. So I would say best friend, but want to have sex. And like most people don't marry the person they had the best sex with in their life. Like the most passionate relationship is sometimes because there's a little bit of like, will she or won't she? And I would say if you're looking for like long-term partnership, like best friend is like a safer bet.
Yep. Good answers. All right. Stay in a good enough relationship or risk being single for a long time waiting for great?
Sorry to be so like, but I think it matters who you are. If you're a person who often leaves relationships, what I call a ditcher, because you're a maximizer and you're looking for something better, then I would say like invest in that relationship and make it great. But if you're a person that really settles and like always kind of accepts the crumbs, then see what it's like to be single and really go after the whole cookie.
Mm-hmm. Your answer is great. So yeah, I'm happy with what you're doing. Shared life goals, but mismatched love languages, or perfect love languages match, but different visions for the future?
I think love languages are kind of ridiculous and overrated. Like they help people and I think they're useful as something to point to, but like they're not scientifically backed. Like let's just talk about what love languages are, because like they've kind of become so pervasive in our culture with people wearing shirts that say like taco is my love language. So the love language is your preferred way of receiving love. And so it kind of helps you say to your husband, I don't care about gifts. I care about quality time. Like for me, for Christmas, my husband said, like, make a list of what you want. And I asked him for 5 conversations that were each 2 hours. And I know it's like sounds so crazy, but like that's what I wanted. I was like, I want a conversation about our housing for the future. I want a conversation around my health. I want a conversation around parenting. And like maybe it sounds silly and people would be like, why did you have to ask for that? It's like, because we're parents of a young kid and we work a lot. My husband commutes. Like we don't have 2-hour quality time conversations all the time. Like we don't even have them that often. And so what I wanted was to have that quality time. I didn't want gifts. And so love languages are a helpful way to kind of show what matters to you, but like you don't have to have aligned love languages. Like 100%, like shared vision for the future matters much more than this thing that is kind of a shortcut to say like this is what makes me feel valued.
I just want to underline what you just said as well, that I actually think you do have to ask and set aside time for very important conversations, especially when you've been together for a long time, because your day-to-day becomes your conversation, and it can be great connection and you can be having fun every day, but you almost don't ever sit down and do that phone call conversation that you did when you started dating, or you don't do that 3 hours dinner when you're with someone. And so I think I fully agree with you on having to outline and ask for specific conversations, especially if it's really important to you and it's not something that you're just willing to also just throw into someone when you both just got back from work, put your baby to bed and you're both exhausted. It's not possible to go on that Thursday night and say, hey, can we just talk about the finances tonight? Like that's going to maybe throw the other person off as well.
Yeah, I would have to say like that was a great gift. And some of my friends have like copied it. They've asked their partners for that for their birthday. And I'm like, I think this could be a thing, because it's like, it's awkward to say, can we spend 90 minutes talking about my health? And can I like talk to you about my Aura ring and this and that? But like, I want that time. And that's what as a busy parent, as a mom, like that's what I was looking for. And I feel like that was so much more enriching to me than like, some red light mask.
Yeah. Okay, last one of these. Date someone who feels safe but doesn't challenge you, or date someone who challenges you but sometimes triggers you.
I think you have to feel safe. Like that is a must have because someone should really feel like home. They should feel like that foundation. So you need it. I think trigger, kind of going back to like boundaries and self care, it's just kind of become like a little bit overblown in our culture. So I would say like investigate that more. What does trigger you mean? Does it mean that like sometimes they challenge you, or does it mean like that they don't respect you, or that they remind you of like an abusive relationship you were in? So I would say safety and foundation is like a must have, but then investigate, is this healthy discomfort or is this unhealthy discomfort?
Logan, you've been amazing to talk to. I've learned so much. I think our audience is going to get so much value from this. I'm so excited for everyone to go to loganyuri.com and actually take the quiz so that they can figure out where they land. I think doing the quiz myself and even breaking it down with you today, and I kept in the interview, everyone will hear me keep going, well, that sounds like hesitator or romanticizer, and it's so usable in everyday life, and I think it's going to help people really recognize what's blocking them at the root, rather than just, hey, you're just distracted or whatever it may be. We end every episode of On Purpose with a final 5. These questions have to be answered in 1 word or 1 sentence maximum. 1 sentence, most likely. So Logan, Yuri, these are your final 5. The first question is, what is the best love advice you've ever heard or received?
The best love advice I've ever heard or received is love is a verb.
Yeah, it's a good answer. Agreed. What is the worst love advice you've ever heard or received?
The worst love advice that I've heard, this is really big on Reddit, is when people have very strict rules where it's like, if he asks this question, never see him again. If he doesn't pay, never see him again. So I think the worst love advice is when you have really strict rules that are not based in like the research or science of what actually matters in dating.
That's a great answer. Question number 3, is love blind?
No.
Do you want to, you can expand.
I mean, I think 9 seasons of the show has shown us that love is not blind.
That's a great answer, for sure. Question number 4, what's something you used to believe was true about love, but now you actually realize it isn't?
I think I'll go back to what we talked about with timing, which is I used to believe that love could sort of overcome any timing, and now I believe that timing is a big element of whether or not you're the right fit.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because time is such a funny one, because it's almost like we're waiting for the perfect time, which I don't think is what you're saying. But you're saying the timing of where your life is right now is going to let you know whether you'll find someone or not.
That's a really good point. So I think a lot of people are hesitators, where they're waiting to be the perfect person, when the truth is you'll never be 100% ready. So I'm not talking about that. Like, date before you're ready. What I am talking about is if you meet someone amazing, but your lifestyles don't line up right now, or they are in the military and you want to have a kid right away, or like all these different situations, it's like right person, wrong time is probably wrong person.
5th and final question we ask this to every guest who's ever been on the show. If you could create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would it be?
Tell the truth. I think just so often we don't tell people how we're feeling. We don't share hard feedback. We're not brave. And look, like there is a time and a place for white lies, such as, you know, when you ask your husband how you look 5 minutes before you're going to his work office party, which my husband hasn't gotten the memo on that. But I think if we were just all more honest about what we're feeling, what we're worrying about, what's going through our mind, we would just have much richer relationships.
Yeah, I think in relationships especially, I mean, you were talking about first dates and dinners, and I remember the first time I took Radhi out, I thought she liked fancy places. I took her I couldn't even afford a fancy place, but I'd saved up and took her out to this fancy place. And she literally, from the moment we walked in, I could tell she wasn't enjoying the experience. And I was kind of like, oh, this is a nice place, you know, whatever. And she just said to me, she goes, you know, my ideal date is not being at a fancy restaurant. It's being at Tesco's, which is our version of Walmart or Target or whatever. And she was like buying some bread and cheese and making some sandwiches. Like that would be my ideal day. And I was like, got it. Like I understood it. And like, I think the next date we like literally went down and walked down a grocery aisle and bought bread and cheese and went home. And it was just, to me, it was so useful to have that early on, because I knew I liked Radhi. I didn't care whether we were at a fancy restaurant or not. And I think if she hadn't told me that, because she was like, oh my God, maybe I'm going to turn him off. Maybe I'm going to scare him. Maybe I'm, you know, it's, and I'm like, well, if I did, then I was just the wrong guy. Like it was, to me, it felt like a fair thing to say. You're allowed to like different things. or tell me what you like. We're getting to know each other. I don't know. I think that honesty piece is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think about some of the richest relationships in my life. So there's a woman, Kimberly, I've been working with for the last 6 years. And I know that if I give her feedback, she will always say, oh, thank you so much. I'm going to work on that. And it's a cliche, but it's true. Like, feedback is a gift because you're making someone aware of a blind spot, and then they have the opportunity to improve. And like, I don't walk on eggshells with her because I know that we can talk through any situation. Or my friend Ellen is obsessed with feedback, and she's so good at receiving it. And I remember one time I guess it was for Father's Day, like the gift that I gave my husband because he loves the New York Times crossword, is that like Ellen and her husband Nihar came over and we all did the New York Times Sunday, or I guess a Saturday crossword, like on our projector. And like every time I would throw out a word, Ellen would say, I mean, now I'm like throwing her under the bus, but she would sort of like, that's not even the right number of letters and this and that. And I told her later, I was like, I'm not that good at crosswords, but I was just kind of having fun, and you kind of like embarrassed me where I didn't want to participate. And she was like, wow, thank you so much for telling me that. Like, I know I have a competitive streak. And like the way she received it, where she was like truly so grateful for it, I just felt much closer to her. And I think that when you're honest with someone and they receive that as a gift and not with defensiveness, it just makes you feel like you can go deeper and deeper with that. And I think a lot of people are afraid of the truth and afraid of rejection, when it's really like being honest with someone is a way to get more intimate.
Logan Ury, the book is called How to Not Die Alone. LoganUry.com for the quiz. Please, please, please go and do the quiz. You'll get your results. You'll be able to learn so much more about what's been blocking you in dating. You'll also be able to strike up a conversation with friends who are going through similar things. So I really hope you check it out. Logan, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any insight, advice, or any way you'd like people to find you more?
Check out the Netflix show. It's called The Later Daters. And I also offer coaching and matchmaking, and there's a lot more great info on my site.
I am going to be sending a lot of people matchmaking your way. I'm so glad we finally met.
Yeah, Jay, this was even better than I expected, and I really appreciate all the work and good vibes you put out into the world.
Thank you. You're the best. This was awesome. Thank you so much. If you love this episode, you're going to love my conversation with Matthew Hussey on how to get over your ex and find true love in your relationship.
Make a list of the things that are truly important for you to find in a partner, and then be that list.
That's a lot of stuff. I already got all I can handle.
Now, is she going to be frustrated? Yes. Is she going to show her girlfriends, and are they going to go, dump this guy, get rid of him? How could he? Yeah, they are. But is she going to get rid of you? Absolutely not. Because it's fun for her, it's a challenge for her, and she knows that you like her.
So when you're dating a girl and you're transitioning from dating to entering into a relationship with her, do you have to keep playing the game? Well, in this video, Chris and I are going to talk about how to keep a girl chasing you forever. So welcome, Chris.
Hey guys.
So both of us get a lot of questions from our coaching clients along the lines of like, well, Bobby, when can I stop playing the game with her? And sometimes it's a guy who's on a little bit of a rocky terms, you know, he's been dating her, but maybe he senses that her interest is slipping, or maybe things are going well and he's just like, when can I kind of relax a little bit? So in this video, we want to talk about that balance between relaxing and becoming comfortable with her being your girlfriend, but also having her always want more, keeping her chasing you, because ultimately that's what we want, right? We don't want to be in a relationship where she's settling for us. We want to be in a relationship where she's happy and you know, craving us. So let's talk about some of the things that we've noticed with our clients and things that guys can do that allow them to keep that chase going.
Right. So we get you in, we coach you up, and you get the girl chasing you. But some of the challenges kind of fade away as the relationship gets more and more serious. There might be certain things that you're not using anymore. We made the joke before we started this video. There'll be a time you're not dating 5 to 10 other women, and that's kind of the challenge. She's trying to win you over. But there are kind of lifelong challenges, and there's like lifelong things that you should never let a woman tame you on. And I think there's a lot of value into learning those things. So we have 3 of those today, and we're excited to share them with you.
Yeah, I think a part of this comes from you and I. We both have this sort of saying, once a woman knows she has you, it's over. And that kind of elicits a lot of guys questioning, well, when can she know she has me? And what you and I kind of sat down and started discussing was, well, what are the ways that she can never know she has you? Because obviously at some point,
she's going to know you like her.
She's going to know that you like her. You're going to say, I love you to her, right? You're not going to be this cold, emotionless guy that never expresses his feelings. So how can she not fully know you have her, which allows her to continue feeling like she has to win you over a little bit and chase you a little bit, which keeps her invested in the relationship. So let's get into a few of the ones that we've discovered that are really, really effective.
So the first one that I see a lot that you should never let a woman tame you on is your seriousness, right? I see this all this time with coaching. Guys just get too serious. And I have a little saying here that I wrote down. I wrote, you can be in a serious relationship, but you can never take the whole thing too seriously. And that's a mistake we see all the time. I was just working with a guy. The girl was pulling back. She said she needed space. And she wanted to come get her key, right, from his apartment. So they set up a time for her to come over, and she was texting him, listen, I really want to talk about what happened. I really want to tell you what went down. And I told him, I go, when she gets there, do not talk anything about the relationship. Don't get into what happened, who said what, how it all transpired. She's going to want to do that, but don't do it. Keep it light, keep it fun. It's totally cool. Let her come get the key. So she shows up, she gets the key, and she tries, hey, just sit down. Maybe we'll figure out what happened here. No, he just kept it light and playful. Now, listen, the guy was hurting inside. I'm not going to say this was all a joke. It's going to hurt you. But you want to put on the frame that you're totally fine with it. So she leaves. She didn't get what she wanted, which was a 2-hour conversation about what happened in the relationship. 5 minutes after she left, she texted him, hey, you want to do something? You want to grab dinner? And guess what? In a week, they were back together because he didn't buy into the narrative of we have to sit down and figure out what happened and make everything feel all heavy. And, it just puts a dark cloud over the relationship when you do that. Try to keep it light and positive despite her pulling back.
Yeah, I'm working with a guy, I've been working with him on and off for years. And recently he had hired me to get back with an ex-girlfriend, and he got back with her, and things had been going well. And then he started getting nervous, right? That he would kind of pinpoint little things she was doing that either he sensed maybe she wasn't as interested, and he was getting really nervous. And he would tell me how, so I asked her about it, and then, next call, he'd be like, then I told her that this, and I go, stop bringing these things up, because it's not fun for her, right? To constantly, because in your example, she tried to bring it up, but I've coached a lot of guys.
Oh, guys do it too, yeah.
Bobby, I wanted to ask her, and I'm like, stop, just enjoy your time with her, because it's not enjoyable to be analyzed. And I've even had clients, not the client that I'm just mentioning. I had another client where the girl actually kept telling him, stop analyzing our relationship, because that's not fun, right? And
it's not fun. It's like a magic trick, a relationship, right? And if the magician, you see him do it and you go, whoa, what a trick. And the magician went, hey, I had the rabbit hidden in the hat. Did you see? That's how I did it. Takes all the fun out of it. Let it be magic.
Yeah, so some of the advice that I gave the client that I was just working with, when he told me well, my girlfriend gets in these moods and it upsets me, so then I start asking her what's wrong or how come we can't. And I go, if she's in a mood, right, you can't change her mind, change her mood. Don't go, let's talk about this, and because you're not going to logically change a woman's interest level. You have to emotionally, right? So if you're with a woman and something is not going right, change her mood, make her laugh, get sexual, do something to snap her out of whatever that feeling that you don't like is happening, right? So you want to avoid, basically you want to avoid, like you said, you want to avoid the talk early in the relationship even, right? Like a lot of times guys get upset because I say don't be the one to initiate the talk, because there is that point when you're in that, are we together, are we not together, and you kind of want to know, right? And I always tell guys, like, just act as if you're together at that point, but don't be the one to sit her down and go, so are we exclusive? And like, let her have that conversation. And even when she has it, I always tell guys, like, when a girl has that, I still am like sort of vague with it. Like I'll give her what she wants, but I'll never be like, I'll always throw like a joke in there to leave her guessing a little bit. Like, I'll be like, oh, of course I'm serious. You know, of course, like we're exclusive. I mean, except for like Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. But other than that, we're
exactly. But she knows deep down you care. That's the thing. You can make that kind of joke, but it always that 1%.
Yeah, you just want to keep her a little bit on her toes.
Yeah, to your point about that, I always tell clients it's got to be her idea, right? It can't be your idea to become her boyfriend. No one likes other people's ideas. They like their own idea. If they thought of it, oh, what a great idea, I want him to be my boyfriend. But back to the talking thing, it's surprising. I have a lot of clients, they're in more deeper relationships, but they're going to couples therapy. And I'm laughing here because I'm like, sitting around, again, talking and analyzing this relationship is not going to raise her interest. And of course, I mean, none of those things work out. I mean, from the dozens that I've heard. So you can't talk about it. Another thing I bring up is don't